Hi guys. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about non-duality. We have a class coming up, and so I want to, continue to touch on the topics that we will be talking about in class in case you were interested in signing up. And class begins on the 26th at 11 in the morning. I know that's the day after Christmas, but I have a deadline because there's a new class coming up in January, so I do have to stick with it. Okay? Today's talk is a little different. I want you guys to truly sink into this thought system, okay? Recently, I had a few people say Cindy is so different, or Cindy's teachings, or something along those lines. And the truth is, I'm not different. I am simply coming at you guys from a purely non-dualistic point of view. And the only difference between myself and other human beings is, quite simply, I'm seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. It's a partnership. It's a partnership we must all make in order to heal ourselves. I'm not through the eyes of ego. And because of that, that allows me to be a little different from other people in the sense that I've kind of snapped out of that illusion. So I want to talk to you guys about the illusion, because how are you ever going to see it if you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, right? So let's talk about what the ego does. The ego, what it does is it makes you separate. You, the belief that you and only you exist as a separate human being. So now, as a separate human being and under the eyes of ego, or what I call sleep or the mortal dream, you will view everything as if it is capable of hurting you, as if it is capable of being separate from you. You actually fall under the script, meaning that your state determines the predetermined set of narration that's going to come along with that set of that state, and then other people are acting in accordance to that script. Okay? So until you realize that it is self-created, what it's going to feel like is that it's happening to you. Okay? So it takes a lot of responsibility at some point to take ownership of that, to say, okay. I created that. But the problem with that was that's only half the picture, because if we say we created that, that's fantastic, except that what comes along with that, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about, okay? Now, why would we create these scenarios, and what makes us tick? Like, what is it that, why would we create some of these hurtful situations? What is it inside of us that is drawing this? Okay? That's what the ego doesn't want you to look at. All right? It's quite simple. It's called guilt and self-hatred. Okay? This is what accumulated every time you did not love yourself, and it grew and it took a life of its own, and it's guilt and self-hatred. And we would rather do anything other than face it in ourselves. So, ego came up with a great plan. Let's project it outside of ourselves, and let's create these bodies, and we don't have to deal with it. Yay! Okay. It sounded like a great plan in theory, except for the fact that what it does is it puts you on a never-ending cycle of never waking up and constantly projecting this self-hatred, this lack of self-love. And I say self-hatred because anything that is lack of love for yourself will result in hatred, lack of love, okay? So I know it sounds like kind of harsh because many of you think you love yourselves, but if you did fully 100% as the Holy Spirit requires you to do, as is in God's plan, you would not see separation. You would see every single body on display as your own. That's the difference. So until you stop doing that, until you stop projecting this guilt elsewhere, we can have criminals and not own being them. We can have people that attack us. We can have breakups in relationships. We can have all kinds of things because we're projecting it outward, and we're so grateful to these people for playing the role because we don't have to face ourselves. And that's the root fear that we have. We're afraid to face ourselves. We're afraid to take responsibility for the hurt and the pain and the things that happen to us. So we need that person to be there and take the brunt of that, or to do it to us, because that way it looks like we're innocent of our own self-hatred. But really, truly, that's what it is. The ego's plan is quite simple. As long as you believe that the world is separate, you will act accordingly, and you will get stuck in the cause and effect cycle of karma. Okay? And it's a great plan, except for the fact that sooner or later we have to snap out of it. Sooner or later we have to recognize that we are the whole thing. That's where the Holy Spirit comes in. That's what makes me a little different, because there isn't one person that doesn't come to me for help that I can't say, oh yeah, I remember when I did that. I remember when I did that too. Oh yeah, that was 20 years ago. That was 10 years ago. Or that was before my time. That was my grandmother's lifetime, but that's my lifetime too, so I know what's going on. And so, meaning that I no longer have this division, and I no longer see anyone as separate, and I don't hate anything about myself. This includes every single body I have, all 8 billion. We all share in it. We all share in it, okay? That's the difference. And so I respond differently. I show up differently. I seem different. I'm no longer in any way rejecting anything that comes to me. I'm not going out searching for it. I don't have to. People show up anyway, right? But they're going to show up for this type of understanding. Everybody is after this type of understanding because it is the difference between heaven and hell. It's the difference between heaven and earth. Okay? Meaning that when you know everything is you, everything in your life changes. Everything in your life changes. That's even wealth. Let's say you were trying to build wealth. You have to understand the whole entire universe is you. You are already everything there. You just have to claim it. But notice that if you don't consider yourself wealthy, you will make wealthy people out to be the enemy or separate from you, and therefore claiming that you are not that, you get to live as not that, while the rest of the people show up as an example of what is possible. This is always happening. If you are separating yourself from anything, you are not seeing the present moment. Something Terry's watching, so he can appreciate this, right? He said he started noticing a different type of caliber of people that started coming around lately because of his mindset. And so I was like, yeah, that's your mindset right now. Own it. Don't look at it as separate. And he's like, oh yeah, that's good. And that is good, because the less separation you make, the less you are going to suffer. Because now you have nowhere to project your guilt. The ego has nothing left up its sleeve because it never had anything to begin with, except an insane belief system in which you were considered separate from the universe that you are. But we cannot, I guess, consider ourselves separate and consider ourselves to be awakened. The two don't go hand in hand. So in other words, if we think we're one individual against the entire universe, we are quite honestly asleep. Asleep. Okay? Whether we want to admit it or not, that's what it is. But there's a different way of existing. There's the way that was always supposed to be the way that allows you to get to know yourself through the understanding that you are the whole universe at once. So now your body becomes this really cool interactive game where you get to enjoy the game of life, but you're also freed from the ego's perspective, the ego's limitations, the ego's preferences, all of these things. And now the difference, okay? I attribute this to Michael Singer. He wrote some pretty good books about how he surrendered to the universe and how the universe lined up for him. accordingly. He got out of his own way of listening to the voice and detached from the voice, and whatever came to him, even if initially he didn't want to do it, he just said yes, the same way that God says yes to everything that you're thinking. And so since his vortex was clear, because he spent a lot of time meditating, he spent a lot of time getting himself clear, he spent a lot of time figuring out the voice in the head and not attaching to it, he literally, every time he said yes to something he didn't initially want to, because the ego said, no, don't do that, you're not going to like that, you're going to hate that, you're going to blah, blah, blah. Ignored that voice, okay? Every time he did that, the world turned out way better than he would have imagined. And that's the type of life that can occur when you trust in the universe that you are. That's when everything good starts coming towards you, okay? But you have to remember that there is a certain level of bias that we have because we listen to the voice, you know. Another example, and I'm going to use someone, I'm not going to say their name, but I'm going to say that this person grew up in a highly toxic environment where the parents were just not there. And she has, you know, memory after memory of being 2, of being 1, of being ignored. And she can go back in time, because she's actually highly intuitive too. And she can go back in time and she can see that little girl, that baby crying, that deserved more attention than what she got. Okay? And so this person, I can relate to being on some level, but not totally, because I was fortunate enough to have some people in my life as opposed to full-on rejection, okay? And this person has trouble seeing out of her lens. So I'm talking to maybe not just about her. I could be talking about many of you, because we all do this, okay? So she has this lens, and so everything she says is negative. All the voice, she's unconsciously attached to it. Everything she says is negative. Oh, they're horrible. Oh, they're this and that, this and the third. You know, everyone sucks. Blah, 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 blah. And it sounds like word vomit, but to her, that's normal, because that was her childhood. And so her childhood is still determining the filter from which she sees. And so then she wants love so desperately, but has no idea that she repels everything based on her negative attitude. Okay, she has no idea. She's like, I don't understand why nobody will stick around. Well, nobody wants to stick around if the only thing out of your mouth is horrible. It's negative. It's coming out unconsciously, but it's the world that she knows. And so she gives up at times because she doesn't know how to see her way out of this, okay? And so this is classic, what I'm saying, because she grew up with that, okay? She doesn't want to face it in herself. So what's happening is the people outside of her are showing her the things that she grew up in. They are trying to show her how to snap out of it, but she can't appreciate it, because in that moment, it just seems like everybody's attacking her and no one ever loves her. And that's one perspective. That's a 3D perspective. But it is not the overall picture of what is going on behind the veil. Behind the veil, what is happening is that little girl never got the love that she needed, and she now has a ton of self-hatred that she knows on some level doesn't belong to her, because a child is never going to hate itself. It was conditioned in because of life. And now that self-hatred gets projected outwardly, and she is now the recipient of people that feel like they hate her. This includes parents, this includes relationships, obviously, because the unresolved traumas that you have as a child will then play out in your relationships, whether you realize it or not. This is law. It's going to happen. People need to show you what's inside of you. But unless you see with the eyes of the Holy Spirit, you cannot understand the design, and it will feel as if you are a victim. You're a victim of your reality. And that's when you know you are playing in 3D, in the dream, on autopilot. You are not awake. You are not aware of the design. And so it feels this way. At some point in time, you have to snap out of it. You have to. You have to snap out of it, or it never ends. and you're never able to have the love that you want, you're not able to receive it. Okay? Even when people want to love you, you have no idea what love is, so you're almost repelled by it. Oh, what is that? You know? Or you'll instantly say, you don't actually love me. I'm waiting for you to do the, actual shoe drop or the backstab in my, you're going to stab me in the back. I can expect that. I expect that. Secretly, your voice is saying that, and this person's trying to love you, and you're unable to receive it because of what you've known. So now this aura of fear that's what you hide behind, and that creates the illusion of separation. And so then the relationship eventually goes downhill from there. It doesn't have to, but typically it does, and it takes a really strong person to own everything that they're seeing, to own the fact that everything is you, and not feel a victim to it. Okay? Now this is true. This self-hatred, you guys, is true of parents, of past relationships, of anyone that you've ever gotten an argument. You have to understand, if everything is you, you are self-hating. If you have problems, you are self-hating. If you are hating on your mother and father, you are self-hating. If you are hating on a past relationship, you are still self-hating. Okay? You are hating the aspect of yourself that you didn't want to look at, but you are still hating it and not loving it, and therefore cannot experience the love that is due to come to you because you are not giving it. And so when the reflection hits the mirror, the universal mirror, you get exactly what you are unconsciously, and so then the relationship goes downhill from there. It cannot reciprocate. It's going to be already at a lower vibration than what is intended. Okay? So think about this, and think about the ego's plan. Think about how these things can occur. Think about this differently. I want you to start thinking everybody is you. Everybody is you. Okay? And that's really what I do. That's the only thing I do differently. When someone comes to me, Sin, I need help understanding this 3D box. Why is it happening to me? And blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, oh, wow. I get it, but I couldn't see that before. The only reason I can do that is because I'm looking at it from the perspective outside the veil. I'm not in the 3D box that you find yourself in, where, quite honestly, the only thing that we do, if you're wondering how this flesh appears to be flesh and what the miracle is that literally we create a wall of flesh that appears to be around the mind and then creates all of these separate bodies. But the only thing that we have done is localize our consciousness from one point. We are none of the bodies and all of the bodies at once, meaning all of our thoughts are on display, but we're not actually there. We can view it from a place where we won't be hurt and still interact and still enjoy the experience. But if you have complete control of your mind, you're going to enjoy the best the autopilot setting has, because you are vibing at a higher level. So everyone shows up at this high level. But if you are unaware, the quality of every experience can go up or down depending on where you are in here. Okay? There's a certain level of discernment that occurs when you connect your heart consciously and your mind into one form of intelligence. You technically have 3 brains. You have 1, 2, and 3, your gut, okay? But if you can connect these 2, heart and mind, as one unit, now your brain can see beyond the possibility of the ego, okay? You have a choice in life. You have a huge choice in life, all right? That choice is this. The egoic interpretation of a separate you has been your seeing eye dog for a long time. It has been the voice inside your head that determines the quality of what you're seeing outside, and it determines each wall of flesh that will appear outside of you that doesn't look like it's you, okay? It is determining that. Those are your bodies. Based on that egoic perspective. It is facing the wrong way. This ego is facing outside externally, and therefore determining the up and down quality of your life. You have another option, and this is what we're all supposed to do. We're supposed to develop a heart-brain coherence. And so when we develop a heart-brain coherence, That seeing eye dog takes you inward, not outward. So although you enjoy your outward experience, you are facing your mind's eye here. And as your mind's eye is aware that all of your thoughts become flesh outside of you, you're able to absorb everything that you're seeing in a whole new light. And if you feel hatred towards anyone in that moment, or you dislike someone in that moment, understand you are not disliking anything but yourself. So stop that, right? And choose to see and tell a different story about this person. You don't have to always be in their presence, but you do have to understand what it is that you're seeing so that you can start to heal, because there's only one way. The heart's way is the spiritual seat that will lead you towards your center as source and will let you see things differently. Or your egoic way, which, like I said, we've all been unconsciously asleep at the wheel. And it has determined every single person and how we've seen them. And it has determined everything as separate. But that is the mortal slumber that we're all here to awaken from. We're all here to awaken from. And I'm not special in any way. I'm here to tell everyone this is the truth of everybody, but we must consciously choose which one we're going to be led by. And technically, we all have the responsibility of a blind father, of guiding our blind father, but I'm going to do it with the help of my heart, because my heart sits in the middle of the spiritual center, so of the spirit world and of the material plane. It sits smack dab in the middle, so it is able to see way far ahead. You remember my darkened warehouse analogy, that you actually contain everything in you. Okay, let's say that's called the universe, outer space that looks empty, the darkened warehouse you cannot see. And so if your eyeballs can only see but 100 feet maybe in front of it because it's dark, and because so you can only see what's in front of you, then you're already blind. However, your heart with its extrasensory neurites and its little brains, okay, has the ability to see way farther. This is why your desires seem so real. Whether you think you can obtain them or not, your heart's already registering them as there, wherein your eyeballs may not be able to see. And this is where it's biblical, where we're told, okay guys, this is the time to call the unseen seen and prove that God can work through you. Okay? So remember these things, guys. Remember and try and think about what I'm saying. You have two choices, the ego's plan or spirit's plan. Spirit wants to unify you with everyone, wants you to know that everything is you, so don't condemn your brother, don't condemn your sister, let go of your story. Remember, your story is the only thing that's on display. The world is, in fact, a confession of your character and nothing else. Nothing else, okay? Your egoic character. Now, there is infinite possibilities of what the world can look like if we let go of that and we start seeing it as our whole body. It's a very different way of existing. Very different, okay? And I don't know here. Alex says, what I've taken and doing is journaling what I want to be happening in my life, even if 3D isn't caught up yet. So I go back and read the positive and they happen. That's exactly it. So the power of the written word, you guys. If you want something to happen, write it down. I know your phones are great for taking notes and stuff like that, but write it down on a piece of paper. It is law. What is written will happen. So whether it's showing up or not, as long as you trust spirit, okay, then you are serving your purpose in this world. If you can see the best, if you can detach from your egoic interpretation, you are no longer battling the enemy within, okay? Eventually what happens is the enemy gives up. The enemy within, the one that's encouraging you to hate, gives up and becomes your personal assistant and then gives you the very best options. And that's where you want to live. That's where you want to live. Okay, so there's gonna take some time, but definitely write things down. It's a very good idea. Other things are saying things to yourself in the mirror, whether Eventually you're going to convince yourself, but whether you feel that it is real out there or not, say it to the mirror, because, see, quite honestly, the image of the mirror is very important, because you are source speaking to a mirror. The universe is a mirror. Your brain doesn't know the difference between one singular mirror that you're looking at right now or the universal mirror. So literally, when you stand in front of a mirror and you give it what you want, this is God speaking into your world. Brain doesn't know the difference. Okay? That's why it's magical. There are so many huge amounts of biohacks, you know. Another thing you can do with your food and water is speak into it and say all the things that you've written down at least a minute before you go and ingest it and then eat it and then drink it. There are all kinds of biohacks you can do. Another thing you can do, I personally, is my favorite, I put on weights on my body and I go for a walk wearing resistance, all right? Wearing these weights, so I'm automatically walking resistance, okay? But in that moment, the whole world fades away, and for that half an hour, use my autopilot to make sure I'm out of danger while I'm walking, but my mind's eye is on my goal so that I can tell my brain I am walking towards my goal. All right? And see, you have to understand the connection between your body and the outside world, okay? It is always symbolically talking to you, all right? Always. So for example, if you stumble and fall in real life, you have stumbled and fallen in your consciousness. If you repeat, like, you ever notice, have you ever done something like this where you keep on going past the same thing because you feel as if you're lost, but you've gone past the same point over and over again, like 2-3 times before you're like, wait, I'm lost. I don't know how to get out of here. Okay? If you've ever done that, that is symbolic of what you have done in your consciousness. You've gone over, you haven't written the next part of your phase, so you're repeating the same story on autopilot. Your brain is always talking to you, okay, through the mirror. You have to understand what it's like to be behind the veil and understand what it's trying to convey without missing the bigger picture. That's huge, you guys. If you fall in your waking life, you have fallen in your consciousness. Okay? Think of these things this way because, quite honestly, the world is not a mystery at all. You are. When you stop being a mystery to yourself, the entire universe makes sense. The entire universe. Everything that's ever happened to you makes sense. And then one day you wake up and you'll just laugh at what you once thought was grief because you'll realize that it was just a dream. And if it's gonna be a dream, you might as well control it and enjoy the best that it has to offer without your biases in the way acting as stumbling blocks, because you will always only be the person that gets you through life or the person that held you back from it. It works either way, but it's always you with you with you with you. Yeah? Okay, you guys. I hope that helps. I hope that it gets you guys thinking. Again, the only way this makes sense is when you realize everything is you. And from those loving eyes, I promise you, you will look at the world and you will walk this world like Jesus Christ. People used to say Jesus Christ's eyes used to twinkle. And there was so much love emanating from it, you know, from him, from just this love that you were instantly healed just in his presence. Well, that occurs when you realize that you are the one that's been on display your whole life. And when you literally fall in love with everything you are, meaning the universe is no longer a place where you have enemies. When you realize every single human being is you, it's your thoughts made flesh, and you're just like, wow. But you love and appreciate every human being that appears to you because they will show you what's going on in your mind. And if you allow your heart to interpret how that is, you interact in the world in a totally different light. Your face even begins to change. Your whole demeanor begins to change. Your body starts to change. Your way you interact with everybody, the way that everybody interacts with you changes. And it's amazing to behold, but it's the truth of everyone if they're able to recognize themselves in the moment. That's the truth. All right, you guys, I didn't want to take too long on this talk, but I love these topics. I cannot help it. Let what I said sink in. Think about it. Think about it. And anyone wishing to join our class next week at 11 in the morning, you are welcome. The link to sign up is on my website. It's bridgetoselfmastery.com. Look at the Behind the Veil course. Again, as a reminder, if you are in India, due to the cost of money difference, please let me know if you're interested in joining. I will send you a different link that's not on our website so that you can sign up. Otherwise, I look forward to having you guys there. And if you can't participate live, but do definitely want to be part of the recordings, please join us for that too. Either way, I would like for you all to see and meet some of the people that already live like this, that already see like this, whose lives have changed 100%. And, you know, I want us all to be on the same wavelength, because as a unit, we walk differently in this world and we see things differently. So, all right, you guys, thank you. Love you. Bye-bye.